I really think like the foundations of health, stress, nutrition, endocrine disruptors, like those things are like the foundations. They're
Mhm.
the same across the board, regardless of what your goals are. If it's fertility, if it's mental health, if it's gut health, if it's eliminating certain symptoms, sleeping better, whatever, it's like there's it's all the same like foundation.
Hey everyone. So, we already know how many people feel stuck in the limitations of conventional medicine, and that's exactly why I created Holistic Health with Melissa to take you on a journey from conventional to crunchy. Here, you'll get empowering wellness insights, practical tips, and faith centered strategies to help you feel your absolute best. In each episode, we'll dig into what true health and wellness really means. We'll dive into nutrition, lifestyle, mindset, and detox, all things so important to your health. And we'll chat about raising kids with intention and living life of faith. So join me to reclaim your energy, embrace your healthiest life, and find joy and purpose along the way. Welcome, everybody, to Holistic Health with Melissa. I'm so excited for you to be here today. We are going to talk about fertility and cycle health. So, men, if you're listening, just no, you know what? You should listen to this because you should know what's going on with your wife. But it might not apply to you directly. So I have my friend and colleague, Dr. Trisha. I'm so excited for you to hear from her. So, after experiencing her own fertility struggles, Dr. Trisha decided to change the traditional fertility narrative and help busy couples optimize their fertility and fast track their path to parenthood through natural and holistic solutions. Dr. Trisha is a doctorally prepared nurse practitioner turned fertility consultant with 12 plus years of clinical experience. Dr. Trisha has also presented at conferences, is a published author of numerous journals, including Nurse Educator. Welcome, Dr. Trisha. I'm so excited for you to be here.
Thank you so much for having me, Melissa.
I am really just excited to dive into all of the things fertility and cycle health. We just have spent some time talking about, you know, we should have been recording this whole time so I could edit pieces in, but um talking about how stress impacts the cycle and your fertility and how so many you can do all the things, all the eating right and take the drugs and all of that, but if you're not dealing with certain like lifestyle things and looking at yourself holistically, like the chances of getting pregnant or having a healthy, successful pregnancy is really, really low. And that's kind of merging like yours and my niches together, which I love. But let's start by are you can you just share a little bit about kind of your own personal journey and what inspired you to transition from traditional medicine to fertility consulting?
Of course, yeah. And if you're not trying to conceive and you're listening to this and you're thinking, oh, this doesn't pertain to me, no, stay tuned because it doesn't matter whether you're trying to conceive or not, your cycle health matters. So, yeah, well, for me, it was walking into that new step of getting married and being like, hey, I'm ready to like have a baby now. And so my husband and I started trying to conceive and we got pregnant right away, which was really, really exciting except for the fact that then I had an early miscarriage. And even as a nurse practitioner, like that wasn't on my radar. It like hit me. I was like, what is happening? I didn't know who I could talk to about it. I remember actually when it happened, I was working in the clinic as a nurse practitioner and I just like stayed at work and was like not even sure, do I call my OB? Like, I don't know, like, is this a big deal? I don't know. So it was just such a thing, of course, we're high achieving ladies. We don't call off work for just anything. So I'm like, here I am thinking I can't even like leave work, even though I'm literally losing a baby right now. And I just remember in that moment and then moments to follow when we had subsequent miscarriages of just feeling so alone. And I knew that if I was feeling super alone as a practitioner and not getting the help and guidance that I needed, and literally just being told, like, hey, no, you got to lose more babies before anybody cares, which is literally what you're being told when you're said when they tell you you have to have more losses. I just
Right.
was
They
like,
told you that?
yeah, so they say this is how practitioners or fertility people, OBs, say it. They say, well, if you haven't had th two consecutive losses or three consecutive losses is typically like the recommendation, or because I had had a healthy live birth in between, then I had a miscarriage, healthy birth, two more miscarriages. They told me that like it didn't warrant like any sort of workup or anything because I hadn't lost enough, had enough
Oh my
miscarriages.
gosh, that's
And I'm like,
horrible. I've never
when
heard
you
that.
think about it, right? They're telling you
Yeah.
you have to lose another baby, right? Because especially as Christians, like we are the moment of conception. And so they're telling me like, no, like we don't care until you lose another one. Like, what in the world? So of course that didn't sit well with me. And I knew that
Yeah.
if I felt this loss as a practitioner, that women who didn't have a medical background probably felt real lost, um,
Mm.
real overwhelmed, and really hopeless. And so I made it now my life's mission, of course, and it's my calling from the Lord to help couples navigate this journey, to get answers. And of course, not everybody's story looks like mine, but everybody has a unique story. And my goal is to always continue digging to help them find answers and holistic solutions outside of the traditional medical realm, um, and to really just give them hope that this is what this can happen for them, but we just need to dig deeper and figure out what's going on under the surface or root cause, as we would call it.
Yeah. I love hearing that. I'm so sorry that you went through that. That's terrible. I had a miscarriage, an early miscarriage myself. My first pregnancy ended in a miscarriage. And I was also at work. I was working in the ICU and I also didn't leave, thinking like I worked in the ICU. So I'm like, I can't leave. Like there's like, I literally passed tissue like in the toilet. And I just started sobbing because I knew exactly, it had never happened before. Didn't talk to anybody. I knew exactly what was happening though. And I can't believe in hindsight, I'm like, I can't believe I stayed. I just thought of like, I didn't even tell anybody. I just like stayed there. And then I didn't tell my husband until like 8 hours later because it was like 11 o'clock in the morning. So it was like 8 hours later. I was like, by the way, I had a miscarriage today. Like it was just wild. But so I'm so sorry that you went through that also and that you were met with that like disregard is the word that comes to mind. Like this is just like, oh yeah, just, go on with your life and go ahead and try again and lose another baby. That's terrible. That's just so sad. It breaks my heart. Um, wow. And to now like turn that whole journey into something that's like so positive to help other people because I feel like this is something so common that people don't have the support. Women, couples do not have the support when they're going through like an infertility journey. So why don't we define if that's okay, can we define like that? What does infertility even mean?
Yeah, so from a traditional medical standpoint, infertility is the inability to conceive after a year of trying. Um, If you are over the age of 35, then it cuts down to 6 months. That would be considered infertility. I hate the word infertility because it seems like so infinite, like it is like impossible. So I like to call it subfertility because we just sometimes need to lower some of the buckets, like our toxin buckets, and we have a bunch of different buckets that get overflowed, and then our fertility is not the priority at that point. So I like to call it subfertility, but in that's not a traditional medicine term by any means. So that's the true definition as far as like from a medical standpoint of infertility. And then of course there's different tiers there of whether it gets like unexplained infertility. Um, that's a different topic.
Got it. And if you have, just out of like for my own curiosity, if you have a pregnancy loss. So like you get pregnant, you have like even just a really early miscarriage and then get pregnant again or don't get pregnant again. And like let's say that happens all within 12 months. Like is that considered infertility? Because even if you've gotten pregnant and had a loss,
Yeah. Yeah, typically that would also then fall under the category of infertility. And then if like you are someone like me who had multiple miscarriages, you're fall under the like recurrent pregnancy loss category.
mm, okay. Wow. Talking about what you just said about like the different toxin buckets that overflow, I'm curious like what you see in practice. What are the most common, I mean, root causes? I don't know, that might be kind of a big question, but like what is the common reasons that you're seeing why people aren't getting pregnant?
Yeah, well, so a lot of it, I mean, the high level of it is typically there's some sort of inflammation going on. And inflammation sets off that silent alarm in our body to say like, hey, we're not safe. And procreation is always the first thing to go because when we're in that like that's how God made our bodies, right? To like when we're in this fight or flight stage and the stressed out state, we're not in the best place to bring a baby into this world. So our body has that like protective mechanism. But the problem is the way that our world is now, we're all stuck in that almost all the time because we always feel like there's a bear chasing us because we have XYZ things on our plate to do. And we have all these like mindset struggles and we have trauma and we have really horrible food going into our body that's causing stress. And we are putting toxins all over our body through our products. And so everything like that this world kind of throws at us causes this low-lying inflammation to happen. Um, which affects gut health, which I see a lot on like my functional medicine testing. But those, the gut health, the overgrowth and things like that, that we talk a lot about with my clients, isn't necessarily the root cause, right? Like that happened from years of like stress, not taking care of our bodies, trauma, how our parents took care of themselves, because that's where a lot of that comes from. So there's so many different pieces. Um, so it's really not just like looking at the labs and the numbers and being like, yep, we got to do this, we got to fix this, we got to fix this. It's really going back to those foundations of what is causing it. And a lot of times stress is the root cause.
Yeah. And something else, you kind of touched on this, but like something I talk a lot about to my clients and just on podcasts in general, I think is this constant stimulation. Like our brains are not designed for these like I'm doing this like CEO boot camp. This is like the second time that oh, hey, you're doing it with me. I forgot about that.
Yeah.
And I this is the second time I've shouted her out. Shout out Ashley Freehand, the Purpose Gathering. So, but one of the first things that she had us do was look at our notifications. I had in the week before we started, I had 400 to 500 notifications coming through on my phone. And I was like, no crap. I'm like feeling overwhelmed because I literally like my brain doesn't stop. My phone just like buzzes constantly. So I'm like, nope, turning off those notifications, like just went through and like turned off a bunch of, but our brain is not designed to have that constant stimulation. And when we have that stimulation and we don't have a sense of like calm, quiet, or, that is triggering to our nervous system, and you're going to be in that sympathetic nervous system. Um, I'd love to hear kind of your perspective on like backing away for a little bit from fertility and moving to just like kind of women's health and cycle health. Like tell us cycle health. What does cycle health mean? And how do these buckets affect your cycle health?
Yeah, for sure. So our cycle is like another vital sign. And people don't think of it that way because typically, you go to the doctor with an issue with your cycle and they're like, oh, just go on this birth control. It'll fix it, which is not a fix. And that's a conversation for another day. But our cycle, when things start going awry a little bit, it's a sign that there's something more going on. And it's like often one of the first signs, because like I said, it's one of the first things to kind of go. So we can see stress impact the cycle. So for instance, I'll throw this situation out here, and maybe this has happened to you, Melissa, and I know there's going to be somebody that this has happened to, but I see in the like some of the forums I'm in on Facebook, and they'll be like, my cycle is almost always super, super regular. And this month, for some reason, I'm late, and they're like panicking that they're pregnant. But they're like, but it wouldn't really make sense, and da da da. And I throw out the questions of like, have you been sick? Are you really stressed? Have you traveled like across time zones? All those things put stress on our body, um, and it can actually delay our ovulation. So I don't know if that's ever happened to you or not. It's happened to
Yep.
me.
Yep.
And I know that women don't know that like literally the stress of illness and just literal stress from life circumstances, moving your body across time zones with that lack of sleep, like so many different things can play into that. Um,
Yeah,
and
like
once in a while,
emotional stress. We're talking like physical stress, like, right? Like when you say stress, a lot of people think like emotional stress. Also, like traveling across time zones, getting sick, things like that. Those are physical stressors on your body. You might not intellectualize them or perceive them as like emotionally stressful, but they are actually stressful on your body
yeah. Yeah. And emotional stress, the
as
same as
well. Yeah.
well. If you're experiencing like, you know, divorce or, a traumatic situation, like all of that can also delay ovulation because your body is perceiving it as a stress the same way it would a physical stress. Um, so those both can affect our cycle. And every once in a while, not a big deal, right? Like we're going to get sick, we're going to have stressful times. But if we're regularly stressed like that, it's going to deeply impact not only our cycle, but like the hormones related to our cycle, specifically progesterone. Because when we see cortisol rise due to stress, which is our stress hormone, we see progesterone kind of plummet. And progesterone is really important for the second half of your cycle, which is called the luteal phase, which is where the lining develops and everything like that. So there's so many different things we can tell just by looking at what your bleeding looks like in your period, how heavy, how light it is, how long it is, what your fertile signs are and your cervical fluid look like, and what your temperatures look like throughout your cycle, and are they rising and staying elevated in the later half of your cycle. There's just so many things and information that we can gather just from your menstrual cycle, um, that really tells us so much about your overall health and your hormones and so many other things. So it really is like a vital sign.
It's interesting to me, like having this conversation with you, because I feel like in my experience with like even just like friends and family and but even with my clients, like people do not want to talk about their cycle. Like if I just let them just say like, what's your cycle like? Like 99% of people will just say regular.
And they don't even know what regular is, to be honest, because no one's told them you don't know what you don't know, right? Like, people will tell me their cycle's regular, and they'll say like it varies by like 5+ days, and that's not regular. That's not
Yeah.
normal. It should only vary by like 1 to maybe 2 days each month. And so like really digging deeper into that and defining, well, what do you mean regular? I mean, I haven't, my ladies struggle with fertility, so we talk cycle day in and day out, but
Yeah.
even in intake form, many times when I'm like, what's your normal cycle length? They give me the length of just their bleeding, like, not their full cycle length. Or they say, oh, it's average of this, but it actually goes from this date to this date. So it's an average of 32 days, but like one day it's like 29, and then the next month it's like 40. Well, yeah, you can get an average, but that's not normal.
Wow. That's really wild. What do you think are like the key lifestyle strategies or lifestyle factors that can impact cycle health and fertility that couples overlook?
Yeah. Well, I think stress is a big one that people overlook because they go, 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 and they don't realize that like it is affecting them, their fertility, their cycle health. Um, So reflecting on that and having that like time for rest, and time to put the phone away and practice some of those things where we just like take a break for a little bit. Just even small amounts of time make a huge difference. Like even just putting your bed or your phone to bed like at a certain time. Like it's small, feels really small, but it will make a huge difference. And then nutrition is a huge one. Like nutrition all day long is going to impact that inflammatory load and what we're eating, what we're putting into our bodies, how our gut is functioning, how our hormones are being synthesized and processed. So that's really important, as well as the endocrine disruptors or hormone disruptors that are in products. So our deodorants, our laundry detergent, our hand soaps, you name it, there's hormone disruptors in a lot of the products, basic products that we use. So that's a big one as well. And then, of course, just mindset in general. Like we talk a lot, I talk a lot about spiritual health and mindset because we're all so busy. And we're just like saying we don't have time to pause and meditate or read God's word or all those. And really, we have to make time for that because the flip side is not pretty.
Yeah. Um, I'd love to hear your perspective on how when you said I forget how you exactly you worded it, but I th I personally never struggled with infertility, but I know some friends have. And one of the things that I noticed in them is that like once you get to the point where you're like, I'm ready to have a baby, if it doesn't happen in like, I mean, some people are more flexible than others, but like if it doesn't happen within like right away, it's like, oh my gosh, what's wrong? And then I feel like that almost like throws them into this like cycle of like massive stress. At least that's what have seen in like my own experience with my friends. Um, do you see that?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, we were told, to like be on birth control and, that you could get pregnant at any moment. Like literally, we're not even taught like there's only like a 5 day window where you can really get pregnant, um, 7 max. But, you were made to think we can get pregnant at any moment and that it's going to be like the easiest thing in the world and that, it's just going to happen.
You have to protect against it.
And you have to protect against it. And then when you're ready, you're like, okay, this is going to be easy. And no one's told you, like, you need to prepare your body 3 months ahead of time. And your husband needs to prepare his body because it takes two to tango. And like, no one's told any of this stuff. So they just think it's going to happen. And then when it doesn't happen for some couples right away, it puts you into the spiral because you're like, I spent my whole life trying to prevent pregnancy. And now here I am. Like, it's so hard. And it's not easy, and they don't have an understanding of what their body is doing. They don't have that baseline understanding. So then they just feel this complete spiral of like lack of control, which we really like control, right? And then we go start spiraling down these Google rabbit holes of like, oh, well, this person says I have to take this supplement because that's going to work. And this person says this. And then you start like, and then you go to your OB and they're like, well, nothing's wrong. Everything's normal. So just keep trying. And then they're like, but I've been trying and I'm doing all the things and nothing's changing. And then what you have to wait an entire year for anyone to like look into anything. And you've then just wasted a year, especially nowadays. Like people are starting to try for babies later in life because they're kind of getting that career set first, which is fine, except for no one's having that baseline knowledge of like, hey, these are the things you can do to set yourself up for success because it's not as easy as everybody's always told you to get pregnant. And for some people it is, and then that's frustrating for those people who it's not easy for. And then the mind kicks in and they're like, well, why is this so hard for me? What's wrong with me? Or maybe past this life decisions, like, well, them being punished. Like there's so many different rabbit holes
Mm,
that people go down, that causes more stress that actually continually even more negatively affects the fertility. Uh,
yeah.
so I like to come in and help you take control of the pieces that you can control specific to your body's needs so that when you aren't the pregnancy itself and when it happens, that'll never be under control. And as a Christian, for me, like that's God. God is in control of that. And I don't care what you believe, like you're just never going to be in control of that piece of the puzzle. But you feel so much more peace when you've taken control of the pieces that you can. It
Hmm.
lets you more easily let go of the pieces that you can't. But I think there's just such a like setup for this like spiral of stress because we're not preparing anybody in high school. Not that the high schoolers would listen to this, but maybe like let's give them a chance, right? Anyway, that's something eventually on my heart to get to is to improve that and tell high schoolers more about their bodies so they can understand. But um, it
Yeah.
really does start like that. Like we think it's going to be easy, and then it's just this thing that will happen magically.
Yeah. You just go off
It
the birth control and then it's like, bam, then you have a baby.
is.
That's
Yeah,
really what they kind of lead you to believe. I totally, it's interesting, like all the conversations that I always have with like yourself and other colleagues is like, I really think like the foundations of health, stress, nutrition, endocrine disruptors, like those things are like the foundations. They're the same across the board, regardless of what your goals are. If it's fertility, if it's mental health, if it's gut health, if it's eliminating certain symptoms, sleeping better, whatever, it's like it's all the same like foundation.
absolutely. And that's why, I'll have every once in a while someone who's like, my hormones are a wreck. Like, I know you work on fertility, but can you help me? Like, absolutely. Because guess what? At the end of the day, foundations are the foundations.
Hmm.
And I also have a lot of people in my space who think that they have the foundations down, but they actually don't. They think they do because they've gathered this information and this information and this information, and they kind of piece together this like thing, but it might not be the best foundation for them. Like,
Mm,
you have to really kind of dig in strategy. So I'm starting a group program, and it's sometimes hard for fertility people to understand why they need to be in a group. They don't want to share. They want to be just like one-on-one with somebody and talking about that. But like the group is so powerful, one, because mindset shifts can happen so much more powerfully in a group. And two, because like we can really hone in and you have that connection and that accountability built in for those foundational pieces to be able to implement them. Because so many people are out there gathering so much information, even on podcasts like this. Like they're just oh, I heard that, I heard that, I heard that. But then like, are we implementing it? Are
yeah.
you implementing the foundations? Are
Yeah.
you
And
actually
that,
taking that strategy out into your life?
right. And that like community aspect too is like so powerful. Like we're social beings, right? Like you're not meant to like go through difficulty alone and not have support. That's why like I have a group also and that's one of the biggest reasons why I decided to set my program up that way was because I feel like that community aspect is like you can get the support one-on-one, but like I'm only one person. And when you have you have multiple other people who are going through the same thing, the same struggles, like there's something so powerful about just like bonding with people and supporting people. And then it brings sometimes, like I've seen in my own group, like it brings things out of people that they didn't even know they had. That they're like, oh wow, like I see myself supporting other people where like I didn't ever see myself supporting other people like this. And it's just so beautiful.
It is beautiful.
I love that you're doing that.
Yeah. I mean, the enemy wants us to sit in silence. That's where he can work his magic the best. So when we're in a group and a community, we can't do that.
Yeah, such a good point. I love that. Um, I could I have so many other questions, but I'll ask the last one. If people want to find you, where would be the best place for them to do that?
Yeah. The best place to find me always is over on Instagram. I'm at Trisha Zehrung. is my handle. And I love connecting with my new followers over there and helping out and just, helping in whatever way I can. So that is the best place to find me. You can also visit my website to get a little bit more info as well, www.trishazehrung.com. Melissa will spell that for you because it's a treacherous last name. Thank you to my um, and then I also have actually a free master class that goes really, really deep into the hidden clues that our cycle reveals for us, into issues that we could be having. So it's all about the cycle. If you want to dive even more in detail into the cycle than we talked today, that would be a fantastic free resource for you. So we'll share that link as well.
Yeah, I'll put everything in the show notes for people to check you out. Trisha, thank you so much for being here and sharing all of your wisdom. I really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you, everyone, for listening to Holistic Health with Melissa. Go like, subscribe to the podcast, share this with somebody who needs it. Let us help us get the word out. Share all things health and wellness. Have a wonderful day.
Hey everyone, thank you so much for tuning in to Holistic Health with Melissa. It is such an honor to have you here. If you found value in today's episode, would you share it with a friend who might need it too and leave us a review? If you have questions or topic suggestions, reach out on social media or visit our website, holistichealthbymelissa.com, and take care. I'll catch you on the next episode.